How do you tell your story? So many people have these moments in their lives that are powerful or instructive or something that someone said to you, you should tell your story. Well, on today's episode, we're going to dive in with Roy Choi. And Roy Choi is one of the really heroes in the cooking world. He is the creator of Koji, which is a modern food truck empire that he's created. He's part of the story behind Chef. If you've seen the movie with Jon Favreau, he's also been with on HBO helping people like Selena learn to cook or learn to become a chef. Roy is an amazing human, but his story is so fascinating and one that he told through his memoir, L.A. Son. And we dive into what it was like to create that one, how he had to find his inspiration points late at night, how he got help, how he had partners along the way, and how he created one of my favorite memoirs that blends the power of story with the power of food. Many people think, oh, if you're a chef, you create a recipe book. But that's not what Roy did. Roy created something much different, something much more powerful that really was able to tell his story through the stories of food, of dishes, and beyond. It was a fascinating conversation. I will tell you, if you've thought, I want to tell my story, you'll see that it's not just your story, it's how you let others experience your story. And Roy does it through the power of food. It's deep. It goes into some things that I think were important for him to share and tell. And I think for anyone who's wanting to figure out how to tell their story better, Roy Choi is for you. Roy Choi, the creator and founder of Koji, the chef, all these kind of things. If you've ever watched him and John do their thing on the Chef Show on Netflix, you'll see he's the man. Roy Choi, everyone.
I was able to express them through the taste of Kobe. So when people first tasted the Kobe taco, I guess that was my first point of where I was able to write something. I was able to tell a story, but not with words. Because when people ate it, they felt a piece of themselves, their childhood. Especially for a lot of immigrant kids, they felt like finally someone understood them, or they, because a lot of us that are immigrant kids, we grow up in double lives. So we have kind of our home life, and then we go out into the real world. We put on the face, and and we live out there, and we mix in. But anyways, so I had all these burdens, and so when finally was my time, because the last thing I'll say on this for the setup is that you're not supposed to talk about any of this shit.
Right, yeah.
You're not supposed to reveal any of this stuff. You're always supposed to kind of just keep it to yourself, and the pain you keep to yourself, and you deal with your own mental struggles and your own doubt and your own self-doubt and all that.
Fans of Chef the movie or the Chef Show on Netflix, or really just awesome stories, Roy Choi will not disappoint. He, I think, has an amazing story of dropping out of law school in his first semester, finding that wasn't his purpose, and deciding to follow Emerald and go to culinary school, and really continuing to push the envelope and think differently and be differently. And I think that's what's been so amazing about his journey, starting out kind of the food truck revolution that really happened in LA and spread, starting in the kind of the Great Recession of 2008 that kind of really spread. And that is sort of what fostered a lot of the conversations about, really the changes of food and social media and all these things behind it. So really interesting story and journey there that we're grateful to have Roy share. And again, a lot about kind of pursuing what you love, what you care about is the conversation. But some fun things here. What was it like writing your own story here in this one? Was it, I know for a lot of, you're not someone who's necessarily putting themselves out there a lot, but what was it, a challenging process, a fun process to sort of put your story out there?
Well, thanks for starting off with the book. I had heard those comments about the recipe, because a lot of people, when they hear cookbook, they want things to be a little straightforward.
Yeah.
They want it to hit all of the familiar things, even though we all have unfamiliar,
yes,
not similar lives. We somehow believe we all have this common thread, that we all grew up with apple pie or macaroni or casserole. And so cookbooks, a lot of times they want it to be like that. The way we wrote this book was it was more, I think, something maybe you guys would appreciate is we try to write it as a creative story. The recipes were an extension of that story, which was the life of Los Angeles and where I grew up. So really, instead of it being a chef-driven cookbook, I want you to come out of each chapter feeling hopefully how I felt at that time. So the chapter was also written in many cases in the frame of mind that I was, whether I was 16 or 9 or 7 or in my mid-20s and couch surfing. This was like a chance to try to take some creative, liberties. They want to make cookbooks and make shit, that it was hard to follow, or that the recipes, even outside of the philosophical or abstract stuff, just structurally.
Right.
I was a very quiet kid growing up. So I come from an immigrant family that really didn't nurture the arts too much. They were like, even though they were both very creative people, my mom actually went to art school. Coming to another country, it's kind of, they fell into a little bit of the spiral of they have to work hard so that you can go succeed and go to Georgetown and become a doctor. And so it was like there was no time for any, a lot of the creative expressions. But also, that wasn't the biggest hindrance. They also were hustling the whole time, so I was left alone a lot. And I was just a quiet kid. When people first tasted the kogi, that was my first point of where I was able to tell a story, but not with words. Like, because when people ate it, they felt a piece of themselves, their childhood. Especially for a lot of immigrant kids, they felt like finally someone understood them, or they, because a lot of us that are immigrant kids, we grow up in double lives. So we have kind of like our home life, and then we go out into the real world. And we put on the face, and and we live out there, and we mix in, the pain you keep to yourself, and you deal with your own mental struggles and your own doubt and your own self-doubt and all that. We would make sure that the immediacy and the energy of the writing stayed intact, so like wouldn't just let it sit for weeks.
We talk about that a lot, like how important momentum is, right? How do you maintain momentum? We have a lot of authors in this group who are actually immigrants' children. And I thought, I always love hearing your story of, so there's an author who actually just published a book called Lawyer, Doctor, Engineer, what it's like to sort of do what your parents still want you to do.
I've always lived kind of triple, quadruple, quintuple lives, when I was, again, like even when I was younger, I grew up in a time where you could leave your kids alone, and so like my parents would be working, and like I was straight up like 5 years old, fucking nobody around,
right?
And, like as a, it's very binary. It's either one or the other. It's like you can either become like a street kid, or you can either become an athlete. And we tend to compartmentalize the human, just the beauty of our mind and if I didn't get a degree, or if I didn't go into a profession that had 4 walls in an office, that somehow that I would, be a failure. Right. But what's weird is it was balanced by our life. We were hanging out on the streets and just getting by, and like just trying to keep the lights. You're born into a lot of baggage that you have to carry, whereas I would see like my other friends, that didn't have that baggage. They'd be fucking smoking cigarettes with their parents. Behind the scenes development of trying to, sometimes imperfections are a part of the story,
right.
Especially cooking. The premise of the show was always, let's just turn a camera on and let's just cook and figure it out, and we'll figure it out from there. There was never any script, any grand, purpose to proving how much we can cook. It wasn't really like a tutorial show. Right. It was like, it was very kung fu in a way in which, you learn as you go. You know,
Mhm.
and everything about it looked great. And
Did.
then we ate it, and yeah, I guess most people would
Right.
cut it at some point. But you know, I guess that's what comes from being having independence in art.
There are moments when you're, in these experiences with, you're sort of in the celebrity world, in the world of entertainment. How do you sort of like tell stories that appeal to people?
When Kogi first started 12 years ago, and when I realized that something very special was happening,
Mhm.
I was in a creative mind of where I had to be a bit of a portal and a conduit to what was really happening on the streets,
Mhm.
and um, to be almost a bit of a microphone, is able to tell all the different stories and gossip and shit talking and love and hate and everything that's going on in that moment. It was very moment focused. And and now that it's gone on a while, and I'm doing a little more kind of content stuff and television and creating and building more like layered concepts as far as restaurants go and stuff. I feel like I, I'm I'm kind of in a way documenting and trying to bring to life the people that the people and the places that raised me, that I feel are a part of the essence of Kogi, which changed, I think, a certain part of the world.
Yeah, great.
In a certain part of humanity. And it brought to life and it upended, even on a specific example, how Americans and kind of Western European ideology looked at food from the streets.
Mhm. Yeah.
It used to be called dirty. It used to be called roach coaches. It used to be called, there used to be all the horrible jokes of if you eat that, you're going to get diarrhea.
Mhm.
That right from academia, from Western European mindsets. And then now that same thing is gourmet, and it changed the whole industry, and it gave people so many opportunities to learn about each other. And those foods now have become culture, and have become a part of people's lives that had never been exposed to them or had maybe been mocking them before.